The Madrigal family may be filled with a bunch of different abilities and talents, but it's also filled with different types of people, and thus, different levels of morality. This is Encanto characters good to evil, or actually, because Encanto has such a small cast and there's no real villain in the movie, we're gonna rank them from well-meaning but flawed to the most pure and noble. And starting out with our least good family member, we have Abuela Alma, Mirabel's grandmother. Now, just so we're clear, we can't really call Alma a villain. She's definitely not. However, someone has to be at the bottom of our list, and there's no denying that Alma is the root cause of the film's conflict. As the opening song says, Abuela runs the show.
Let's be clear, Abuela runs this show.
Being the head of the household, she was the one to lead her family into using their gifts to help their community. While this was a selfless desire, it also led to her instilling an expectation of perfection within her family, putting a ton of pressure on them to never make any mistakes. What's more, when it comes to characters like Mirabel, she'd rather have them out of the way in order to keep her family's image of perfection. It gets to the point where Alma cares more about her family's magic than her family itself. Even if it's unintentional, she clearly sends a message that anyone who doesn't do good with their gift is a burden on the family. She also blames Mirabel when things start going wrong without giving Mirabel a chance to even defend herself. Alma was even willing to forget about her son, Bruno, when his gift proved to be more of a negative than a positive. Thankfully, by the end of the movie, Alma is able to realize her mistakes once she sees the result of all of her pressure. She is genuinely remorseful and is able to make a change for her family's sake. It's also made clear that her need for perfection comes from the deeply rooted trauma of her losing her husband and home, and the fear of it happening again. Alma is a heavily flawed character, and while it's clear she loves her family, it certainly takes her a while for her to realize that perfection isn't needed nor is it required in order for someone to receive family love and pride. Abuela Alma earns the Greed Medal because of her desire to keep the miracle alive at any cost, even if it means controlling and pressuring her family, showing her greed for maintaining a perfect family image. And we also have to give her the Wrath Sinner Medal, because of her strict and sometimes harsh treatment of her family, particularly Mirabel, stemming from her fear and unresolved trauma. Next up we have Isabella, Mirabel's oldest sister. With the power to make flowers bloom everywhere, Isabella is considered perfect and the golden child, the most graceful madrigal. Taking after her abuela, Isabella very much shares the mindset that those who don't have a good gift to offer are a burden. She has a lot of friction with Mirabel, and like Alma, Isabella sees Mirabel's attempts at helping as just being in the way. She has an air of being somewhat stuck up and can be pretty rude to her youngest sister. Isabella even tells Mirabel that she hates her after she ruins her fiancé's proposal attempt. We will say though, that it's not like Mirabel helps matters. Both of them kind of share the blame when it comes to the friction between them. Additionally, much of Isabella's personality and mindset not only comes from her grandmother's influence, but also the expectation that she must be perfect. Isabella puts so much effort into being perfect, in fact, that she was willing to marry a man she didn't love just to please Abuela and help her family. She has to earn the Pride Sinner Medal because of her obsession with being the perfect golden child and her resistance to change, reflecting her pride in maintaining an idealized image. While she may seem like a bit of a princess, she cares about her family just as much as everyone else. She was even willing to forgive Mirabel for everything after Mirabel helped her discover a new side of her powers and encouraged her to let loose with flowers that weren't beautiful and perfect. Moving on to Camillo. He's Mirabel's cousin who has the ability to shapeshift. Being a teenager, Camillo is one of the more mischievous members of the family. He'll often use his shapeshifting to be sneaky, like when he's shapeshifted into his sister to get extra portions at breakfast. He also uses his shapeshifting to taunt and tease people occasionally, like when he transformed into his cousin's fiancée and made kissy faces at her. But that's just typical kid stuff. We should also note that Camillo uses his shapeshifting for plenty of good as well. During the opening number, we see him shapeshift into one of the women in town and offer to take care of the woman's baby so that she can get some rest. He's also incredibly friendly to the townsfolk in general, greeting each one individually when they come for his little brother's gift ceremony. While it may be easy to dismiss him as a bit immature, Camillo clearly has a good heart. Next is Pepa, Mirabel's aunt and Felix's wife. She can control the weather with her mood, and while this is normally a positive power, her tendencies to be overly emotional can result in some pretty crazy weather. It's very easy for her to worry or get stressed out and thus cause both her mood and the weather to flip on a dime.
What do you want from me?
Because of this, she tends to put her family on edge and make them feel like they have to keep her calm, though it's not like she does this on purpose. She does at least try to control her emotions, even if she usually fails. Still, beyond all the anxieties and thunderstorms, she does care deeply about her family and wants to see them be okay just as much as anyone else. We should also note that while she did hold a bit of a grudge against her brother Bruno for ruining her wedding day, it didn't take long for her to forgive him once he explained himself. Next, we have the always listening Dolores next. She's another one of Mirabel's cousins, and thanks to her enhanced hearing, she knows everything about everyone.
Tonight, he wants 5 babies.
Much like her mother, Pepa is a power she can't always control. As such, it'd be unfair to call her an eavesdropper or a gossip. In fact, we see that she does try her hardest to stay silent when she hears about Bruno's final vision regarding Mirabel. When Dolores does finally break and spill the beans, it's not done maliciously or to get attention. She just can't hold it in any longer. Funnily enough though, she was able to keep bigger secrets. Being the only one who could hear Bruno within the walls, she only told Mirabel about what she heard instead of revealing his hiding spot to Alma and the rest of the family. Dolores does earn the Lust Sinner medal because of her deep yearning for Mariano, despite knowing he's set to marry Isabella. Still, she was also willing to keep her own secret crush on Isabella's fiancé hidden away, both because she didn't want to hurt Isabella and because she thought that Mariano marrying Isabella was what was best for the family. As such, she allowed herself to suffer in silence, and it takes a selfless person to do that. And while it may say more about Alma's expectations for her family, it also says quite a bit about Dolores. And speaking of the suave fiancé, Mariano is actually up next. We don't really have much to say about Mariano, as he's only in the film for a couple of scenes. His attempted proposal to Isabella, and the ending when he learns about Dolores' feelings. But while he doesn't have a huge impact on the story, we can still consider him a nice guy. He says it himself that he has a lot of love to give, and he didn't seem to hold it against Isabella or her family when everything went wrong during the proposal. He's eager to get married, but respects Dolores' opinion when she tells him to slow down. So he's kind, caring, and even tried to offer the Madrigal family a gift through his attempted song performance. Next up, we have Felix. Being one of the 2 men that married into the Madrigal family, he's Mirabel's uncle and Pepa's husband. In the latter role, Felix is the one who balances his wife out, often being the one to calm her down. We see him show his love for her throughout the film despite all of Pepa's flaws, and it's clear he has a lot of affection for her. Although he very much fits into the category of the fun uncle, we can't call Felix irresponsible. He's often keeping an eye on his son, Camilo.
Camilo, stop pretending you're Dolores so you can have seconds.
Making sure that he doesn't get into too much trouble. Towards the climax of the film, we also see Felix protecting his youngest son from the Madrigal home when it starts to fall apart. It should also be noted that while his wife argued against it, Felix was willing to talk about Bruno when Mirabel asked him to. As such, he comes off as a pretty honest guy, as well as being fun-loving and caring. While he may not have a magical power of his own, he's certainly one of the brighter members of the family Madrigal. We're going to be ranking both of Mirabel's parents, Julieta and Augustine, in this next spot. For her power, Julieta can heal people's injuries with her food. As for Augustine, while he is pretty accident-prone, that doesn't stop him from being active within the family as he tries to do his part. Both of them care a lot about their 3 daughters, being especially sympathetic towards Mirabel and her struggles within the family. Both of them try to convince Alma to not be so hard on Mirabel,
Mama, you've always been too hard on Mirabel.
showing that they're not only protective, but they also don't look down on Mirabel for being powerless, and instead see her as just as special as anyone else. Unfortunately for Julieta, this could maybe come off as her trying to dismiss her daughter's feelings with an influx of positivity and hugs. Yeah, she clearly tries to make her daughter feel loved and special, but she seems to struggle with addressing Mirabel's actual feelings, and instead just repeatedly tells her that she's perfect just the way she is. It's a good message, sure, but it wasn't what Mirabel needed at that moment. Augustine, meanwhile, was a bit more active than his wife. When he learned of Bruno's final vision from Mirabel, he immediately tried to hide it. This was dishonest, but he only did it because he didn't want to risk Mirabel being hurt, or being seen as something for the family to be afraid of. He also makes up for this moment of dishonesty when he confronts Alma about how she treats Mirabel, being much more firm than his wife. Neither parent is perfect, but we do see that they try their best and have the best intentions with all that they do. Next, we have Antonio. Although we can't give him the title of most good character, as there are a few other characters who do more within the story, Antonio is certainly the most pure. He's the closest to Mirabel, looking up to her and seeing her more as a sister than a cousin. Because of this bond, Antonio deeply sympathizes with Mirabel and her struggles due to not having a gift.
I wish you can have a door.
Even though he wants a magic power like the rest of his family, he also doesn't want to leave her behind. He's one of the few people who doesn't see Mirabel as a burden, and unlike Mirabel's parents, he also doesn't dismiss her feelings. He wants to help her, and even offers up his room to her without hesitation when Mirabel and Bruno need a place for his visions. Antonio also falls into the trope of friend to all animals once he gains the ability to speak to them, and honestly this trait just further adds to how pure he seems to be. Just outside of our top 3, we finally come to the film's protagonist, Mirabel. Mirabel is described as imperfect, weird, and quirky, but also deeply emotional and incredibly empathetic. She cares about her family more than anything else and is willing to hide her own feelings of hurt and her own desires of wanting to shine bright because she doesn't want to burden her family with them. She does earn the Envy Sinner Medal because of her feelings of inadequacy and longing to have a gift like her family members, demonstrating her envy as she yearns for the same recognition and value. It's only when she sees how much pressure the rest of her family is under that she finally breaks and not only reveals her true feelings, but the truth of the situation as well. When Mirabel first notices the cracks in the Madrigal home and learns that there's a chance that their miracle could go out, she takes it upon herself to try and figure out what's going on. Although this is done for mostly selfless reasons, there's also a sense that Mirabel is also doing it to prove herself and show that she can be useful to her family. Because she is a bit headstrong and determined to prove her worth, this can sometimes make Mirabel come off as being a bit stubborn and careless. This is especially evident in that her attempts to learn the truth sometimes causes her to accidentally create more cracks within the house. And while we know she isn't risking the safety of her family on purpose, it is a bit concerning that she barely puts a second thought into the risks she's taking. Regarding the friction she has with her sister, Isabella, we should also note that Mirabel can come off as a bit judgy at times, dismissing Isabella's problems and feelings just because it seems like she has the perfect life on the surface.
Selfish, entitled princess!
Thankfully, Mirabel quickly corrects herself once she learns the truth. Ultimately, truth is what symbolizes Mirabel the best, as she's the only one willing to truly confront her grandmother's harmful mindset head on, and thus is the one to lead her family into making a change for the better. All in all, she's a pretty great Disney protagonist, flaws and all. Taking the bronze medal for most good is the strong and buff Luisa Madrigal. With her gift of super strength, she takes it upon herself to carry everyone's burdens and never complains. Well, outside of her solo song, that is. While all of the Madrigals do something to help their town, it's evident that Luisa does the most. She has a whole list of chores that she does daily, from rounding up donkeys that have gotten loose to fixing houses and setting bridges. As tired as she gets, she still pushes to remain the strongest.
I'm totally fine. Magic's fine. Luisa's fine. I'm totally not nervous.
Not out of pride, but because she doesn't want to let anyone down. Even when she starts to lose her powers and is emotionally distraught, Luisa still tries to do what she can to help. She puts her whole heart into helping and being her family and community's strength. And between her hard work ethic and her soft heart, she definitely earns the Bronze Medal of Good. But taking the Silver Medal of Good is the late Pedro Madrigal. But first, this video is brought to you by Wicked Binge channel memberships. You can gain access to our videos early before anyone else, plus get members-only emojis and loyalty badges by supporting the channel through a membership. Pedro is another character that doesn't get too many scenes. In fact, he doesn't even get any lines. But considering what he's done for his family, we felt that we had to not only acknowledge him, but also give him proper recognition. Long ago, when he, Alma, and their 3 infants were fleeing their home, they ended up being chased down by invaders. Not wanting his family to be hurt, Pedro tried to stop them on his own while telling his wife to run for it, ultimately sacrificing his life for the people he loved the most. Obviously, characters who make a heroic sacrifice easily earn a high spot on the morality scale. And even if we didn't know Pedro for very long, we can tell he was a very kind and loving man while he was still alive. But finally, we're gonna give the Gold Medal of Good to the infamous Bruno Madrigal. Ironically enough, the so-called black sheep of the Madrigal family ended up being the most good and noble of the family. Having the gift of seeing the future, Bruno more often than not ends up delivering bad news as he warns others about what he sees. Unfortunately, the Madrigals have never heard of the phrase "don't shoot the messenger," as they and the rest of the village quickly began to see Bruno as both a bad omen and someone who caused bad things to happen just by sharing his visions with others. Bruno, however, never held this against anyone. He would continue trying to help others and keep to himself when he couldn't. One notable example of this was during his sister's wedding. While yes, he told Pepa that it looked like rain, Bruno didn't do this to stress her out. Instead, he was only trying to let her know that it was okay for her to let all of her stress out and let loose with her negative weather. When it came to his final vision, instead of upsetting Alma or risking Mirabel's happiness by sharing his vision, Bruno decided to exile himself from the family he loved so much. Living within the house walls, Bruno kept an eye on his family while keeping his distance, not wanting to hurt them anymore. But even with all of this isolation and blame, Bruno never grew bitter. Even after Mirabel tried chasing her down, Bruno still tried to save her from falling through a floor gap. Later, when she asked him to give her another vision, Bruno gave in despite his own fears,
No, see, I don't do visions anymore.
wanting to help both her and their family. Then, towards the end of the film, Bruno tracked down Mirabel and Alma, the latter of which he was avoiding the entire film, being afraid of her rejection and disappointment, and was willing to take all the blame for the Madrigal home falling apart just so that Mirabel wasn't shunned like he was. Although Bruno isn't the most mentally stable guy, entertaining himself with rats and making up alternate personas to combat his loneliness, it's clear that he has a ton of love to give. He's willing to be brave and honest in the face of fear and rejection, and for this, we just have to give him the title of most good character in the whole Encanto film.